Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
He gave me a house, and what did he leave you with? A lonely old age, laughed the young mistress. And when she came to court, Christina gazed grimly at her wedding photo, a smiling Matthias in a formal suit with a small bouquet of lilies of the valley in his lapel, and herself with a somewhat embarrassed expression, shyly holding the hem of her white dress. The green apple bushes dotted with flowers and the ground covered with their petals. "Well," she said aloud, biting her lip, "my mom always told me not to get married in May, or I'd struggle all my life. Was I a naive, young fool?" Everything seemed so cloudless then, and Matthias, there was no one better than him in the whole world. But what now? Christina moved away from the dresser and wiped a tear from her eyelashes. It had been over a month since her husband confessed everything. And of all days, he had to reveal his infidelity on their anniversary. 12 years of marriage down the drain. And they hadn't had any children, which in hindsight was for the best. Christina couldn't imagine having to explain to a child that their parents had to divorce. Although, maybe things would have turned out differently with a child. No, she thought, a child wouldn't have helped, it would have all fallen apart even faster, like with Corona. Her husband left when Serena was only 4 years old, nothing stopped him. And now he doesn't even pay alimony, the girl is juggling 2 jobs, not knowing how to make ends meet. And yet, there was once such a great love. It seems that all these feelings can't stand the test of time. But what about those who are happily married for 50 years? True love? Don't make me laugh, it doesn't exist. Those who stay together for a long time build their lives on mutual respect and friendship. These feelings are much stronger than this so-called love. But I loved Matthias, truly loved him. It's pointless to argue about that, and I felt it from him too. But when did it all pass? I didn't even notice. Everything just turned into a habit. Even when he admitted that he had been in love with another woman for 2 years, I wasn't surprised. Deep down I felt it, though I suppressed my suspicions. Well, nothing can be done now. Let him live as he wants, I'll manage without him. I just feel that this lady has latched onto him tightly. I doubt it's all about love, money is the key. Matthias isn't that young, and he's no handsome man. To each their own taste, of course. I liked him, but then he was only 35 when I lost my head, and I was just 20. He was already a man with a status, earning well. My mom kept saying not to let him go. But I didn't need money at all, he won me over with his worldview and intelligence. I've always liked men like that. But now he's almost 50, and his serious business has undermined his worldview. I can't imagine what a young girl, she can't be older than 25, found in him besides money and status. She should be finding happiness with her peers. Oh, foolish girls, they don't understand what their craving for a rich life leads them to. And there's no point talking about great wealth. Yes, Matthias has money, but he also has a ton of debts. So many failed projects, investments, loans his company took on. It only seems like he's doing well from the outside. The girl clearly hasn't seen the state of his accounts, she was taken in by the expensive car, suit, and property. And he probably spun her some yarns too. Well, to hell with them, I'll go for a walk, my head is splitting. Christina quickly put on jeans and a t-shirt, tied her hair back, and stepped out into the warm June day. The traffic on the main street roared with a cacophony of sounds mixed with the revving of engines and honking horns. Summer was in full swing. Ice cream stalls were everywhere, and Christina decided to treat herself. She carefully unwrapped the Eskimo ice cream and bit into it with enjoyment. Instantly, childhood memories flooded her mind of walking downtown with her mom, eating ice cream in just the same way. The taste was different, of course, but she still enjoyed it. Christina hadn't eaten ice cream in a long time. Matthias wasn't a fan, and she rarely bought treats for herself, trying to stick to a very healthy diet. She wasn't particularly fond of sweets either, but this Eskimo ice cream seemed splendid to her. As she finished up, she heard someone call her name. Christina turned around, trying to spot the person in the crowd. Finally, her eyes landed on a slender girl in a red tracksuit, holding a small shaggy dog in her arms. Christina was taken aback. "Well, I didn't expect to run into you here," the girl said with a sly smile, and the dog let out a friendly bark, as if echoing its owner. "Hello, Ernesta. And why not? I live here, after all, nothing surprising about me taking a stroll," Christina replied indifferently to her husband's mistress. "Do you live nearby too?" "I thought you'd be busy with work," Ernesta continued. "You know, being a busy woman." "I'm on vacation," Christina answered nonchalantly. "And do you live close by as well?" "It's strange how calmly you're reacting to me," Ernesta remarked. "No, it's good. I really don't want to ruin our relationship. But still, the situation." "Ernesta, it's quite a common situation," Christina interrupted. "So what if a husband leaves his wife after so many years of marriage for a younger mistress? It's life." "I thought you might claw my eyes out," Ernesta grimaced. "It's the first time I've seen a woman react so calmly to a rival." "Well, it must be new to you," Christina replied casually. "Besides, life isn't like a TV drama. It's simpler and more complicated at the same time. I respect Matthias, no matter what he's done. It's his choice and his right. And I'll give him the divorce, you don't need to worry. Just don't think life with him will be all sunshine. He's a complex person. Although if you have love." "And what, you think there isn't?" Ernesta laughed, stroking her dog. "To be honest, I think it's all about money, but it's none of my concern. Don't try to convince me that noble feelings overwhelm you. I've seen a lot in life, and one thing I know for sure, when a girl is half the age of a man, sincerity isn't in question. Matthias isn't that old, and it's perfectly normal that we found each other interesting. Think I'd be better off with peers? They're all dullards who don't want to build families. So you're all about starting a family?" "Of course, I want a child. I'm honing my motherhood skills with Marcel." "But you wouldn't understand, you don't have children." "I don't understand," Christina replied. "As for money," Ernesta continued, "I believe a man should be well off regardless of whether there are feelings or not, and he should prove his love through actions. In your time, romance was supposed to solve everything. Love in a cottage, isn't that what they say? But now it's different, and it's perfectly natural for a woman to expect not only romance from her beloved but also financial support. A girl like me shouldn't have to work, and maintaining oneself is expensive. How much does a manicure cost? And a cosmetologist? Well, yes, indeed." Christina bleakly smiled, observing Ernesta's flawlessly smooth face, her enhanced lips and thick lashes, clearly not of natural origin. "Ernesta, you'd do better to watch over your soul rather than your body. The body wears out sooner or later, but the soul stays with you forever. You may think youth lasts forever now, but believe me, no cosmetologist can restore the sparkle in your eyes." "What do I need that sparkle for?" Ernesta laughed. "My diamonds shine brighter than your eyes, they're more than enough. And if you think Matthias and I aren't serious, you're mistaken. By the way, he bought me a house, a kind of gift. Actually, I'm on my way to the notary right now to sign something." Christina froze in surprise. Matthias was quite stingy. Throughout their life together, he rarely gave her anything. She bought herself the jewels. What's more, she even saved up for her car. Matthias only contributed a little when the need for a car for his wife became urgent and she openly asked for money. All his property was registered under a firm. He avoided some taxes that way, so the news of him buying a house for his mistress shocked Christina. "That's how it is," she murmured. "Well, congratulations. Will you two be living there together?" "And how else?" Ernesta laughed in Christina's face. "After the divorce, Matthias will definitely sell this apartment where you're currently living. So get ready for a lonely old age alone with your soul." Christina felt herself boiling over. She was prepared to forgive her husband for cheating, even forgive him for such careful spending on his mistress, but this laughter threw her off balance. A lonely old age was never part of her plans. Besides, she hoped Matthias would act honorably and leave the apartment to her after the divorce. She had invested so much effort and time into making this place her home. Yes, Matthias had bought the apartment before they got married, and legally she had no claim to those square meters. Legally, yes, but morally. Moreover, it wouldn't cost Matthias anything. Her husband had always been decent, and Christina hadn't expected this kind of deceit. Having reassured herself that the mistress was simply mocking her, Christina bid farewell dryly and headed home. She was eager to talk to Matthias, who now rarely appeared at home, preferring to live outside the city. Apparently, it was their countryside house, built last autumn, that he had gifted to his mistress, although initially the house was intended for Christina. Christina had long dissuaded her husband from building it, but he insisted that a country house was a good asset and a secure investment. As usual, he had everything registered under his company, and Christina didn't interfere in her husband's financial matters. As it turned out, she had underestimated the situation. Realizing that waiting for Matthias was pointless, she decided to visit him herself, especially since Ernesta was in town and it was unlikely she would meet her at Matthias' home. Without wasting time, she jumped into her SUV and sped towards the highway. The village where Matthias had built the house was just a stone's throw away. The fashionable suburb that had replaced the once run-down village greeted her with wrought iron gates and a guard booth. The guard scrutinized Christina, checked something on his computer, and then opened the gates. Thank God Matthias hasn't yet thought to remove me from the residence list, Christina smirked to herself. Or am I getting ahead of myself? Could Ernesta have lied just to spite me? She's watched too many of her soap operas. How can it be? All these girls can think about is money, and they still act like they're in the right. Well, her time will come, and she'll understand that money isn't everything. Christina slowly approached the high fence surrounding the beautiful stucco mansion. She pressed a button on her remote, and the gate smoothly slid open. As she drove into the courtyard, she immediately noticed Matthias' black sedan parked there. Matthias was home. She climbed the stairs and entered inside. Matthias, she called out. Her voice echoed hollowly through the walls. The house was almost empty, only some furniture stood on the ground floor. Matthias had always wanted to hire a designer but kept postponing it. Now Christina could guess why. Apparently, Ernesta was managing everything here herself, not wanting anyone near her future nest. Ernesta, why are you back so soon? Matthias' voice rang out first, followed by his appearance. Oh, Christina, is that you? He looked genuinely surprised and clearly displeased by his wife's sudden appearance. Not expecting me? Christina smirked. No, muttered her husband. Matthias, we need to talk. I didn't know if you were coming home today or not, so I decided to visit you myself. Well, sighed the man, come in. What's the matter? Did you bring the divorce papers? No, you're handling that. I'll sign everything, no problem with that, but... Anyway, today I met your Ernesta. Ernesta, her husband interrupted. Where, I wonder? Not far from here, she was heading to the notary's. Ah, I see. Matthias, is it true that you gave her this house? Matthias pressed his lips tightly together and remained silent for a long time. Yes, he finally exhaled. I didn't want to tell you to avoid unnecessary questions. But since it's out now, don't think I've lost my mind. It's just that things aren't going well for the company right now, so I quickly transferred the property to Ernesta, or else I'd lose the house if it was registered under the company or my name. You know I have debts. I know about the debts, Christina nodded. Does your girl know? It's not my business, but she behaves too consumerist. Don't make a mistake, Matthias. And she also told me that you're planning to sell our apartment. Is that true? Matthias looked away. Why are you silent? Is it true or not? You can't do this. This is our home. My whole life is tied to it. I've put my heart into every corner of it. Christina, calm down. We'll have to sell the apartment. You know by law you have no rights to it. I acquired it before our marriage. Let's not dwell on this now. If you're worried about where you'll live. I have a place to live, his wife retorted. That's not the point. You need to understand. Well, all the more reason you have a place to live. The court won't make exceptions. Don't overreact. I really need money right now. I'm in a tough spot, and selling the apartment will solve a lot. Show a little humanity. What? Are you kidding me now? Christina laughed. Humanity? Me? You're practically kicking me out onto the street, and I'm the one being inhumane. Next, you'll tell me you want half of my car. Well, not half, Matthias smirked grimly, a quarter, exactly how much I invested in it. How petty you are. You won't get anything from me. I bought the car with my own money. You didn't even contribute a quarter of the amount. I was such a fool to believe all your tales so you could quietly circumvent taxes. Were you planning all this in advance? Why did you even marry me? Christina, stop it. Fine, then, the woman jumped off the couch. If that's how it is, I'll file the papers myself today, no more delaying. Drown in your houses, apartments, cars. I hope your new girl won't take away the meager crumbs that are left. I loved you, Matthias. That's over. But I also respected you. But now you've done everything to shatter that respect with your mercenary interests. Goodbye. I'll pack my things today, and I'll bring the key to your apartment to your office later. Leave it with the receptionists. And don't ever call me again. It's all been said and done. There's no point in dwelling on it. Christina stormed towards the exit with quick steps and slammed the door loudly. She wanted to destroy everything here so Ernesto would suffer cleaning it up later, but the door was sturdy unlike Christina's own nerves. The phone rang in the morning. Christina peeled open her sleepy eyes and, squinting with one eye, tried to figure out where her smartphone was. The sound was coming from somewhere in the closet. Damn, she cursed, I left it in my bag and tossed it in there. Raven. Ugh, I really don't want to get up. Who's even calling? I'm on vacation, can't even get a proper rest now. The phone continued ringing, indicating that the person on the other end wasn't going to give up. She'd have to get up. Christina lazily shuffled to the closet and fished out her phone from her bag. As soon as she picked it up, it rang again. The number was a landline. Hello, she answered sleepily. Hello, a male voice replied. May I speak with Christina Cedillo? Cabezas, Christina hesitated. Cedillo is my maiden name, go ahead. I apologize, that's how it's listed in my documents. My name is Mr. Gregorio, I'm a lawyer. Could you come to my office today? Is this about the divorce? Christina sighed deeply, slightly relieved that Matthias was acting so swiftly. Divorce? Gregorio sounded surprised. No, I represent Mr. Rafe Sierra's interests. Are you familiar with this person? Rafe? Christina was confused. Honestly, no. Senor Sierra? No, definitely not. He was my client. He was? Yes, the thing is, he passed away 6 months ago, and now I need to announce his will to the heirs. You're listed as the sole inheritor, and I barely managed to find your phone number. Me? There must be some mistake, Christina frowned. I have no relatives by that name. Well, it's not certain he was a relative, perhaps just an acquaintance. People sometimes name non-relatives in their wills. Nevertheless, there can't be a mistake. Attached here is also your childhood photograph. Maybe you could still come by, and we'll clarify everything on the spot. All right, Christina continued to frown. What time and where? Gregorio gave his address and set the appointment for noon. Christina hung up and glanced at the clock. It was just past 11. Wow, that was a nice bit of sleep, she muttered aloud. And here I thought it was early for calls. Turns out lunchtime is just around the corner. She quickly brewed instant coffee, which miraculously appeared on the shelf, ate a sandwich, and took a shower. The drive wasn't far. Christina didn't bother dressing up, but upon arriving at the lawyer's office, she regretted it. She was greeted by a well-groomed receptionist whose suit cost more than Christina's monthly salary. "Senor Gregorio is waiting for you," the girl chirped. Christina was struck by how courteously she was treated. It was clear the law firm was thriving. The office gleamed with polished marble, expensive furniture was everywhere, and exotic plants stood in elegant pots. The secretary escorted the visitor to her boss's office. Gregorio turned out to be a well-fed elderly man, his eyes gleaming lively beneath designer glasses. "Senora Christina," the man spread his hands as if about to embrace her. "Please, have a seat." "Gregorio, I still believe there's some mistake here, and I'm not the person you're looking for. We'll sort it out right now." The lawyer briskly sat down behind his desk and began shuffling through some papers. "Here, please take a look. Is this you in the photo?" Christina took the photo he handed her. Her heart skipped a beat. The exact same photograph was kept at her home. When Christina was little, her mother often invited a photographer over. Back then, cheap Chinese cameras had just started appearing, and it was easy to take pictures yourself, but her mother was faithful to old traditions. On holidays, a man in a strict suit with a large trunk and a tripod always came to their house. Christina was always dressed up and not at all in the mood for a portrait shoot. So in this photo, she was captured as a girl in a beautiful silk dress with butterflies, delicate bows on her head, and a huge piece of half-eaten apple against her cheek. The apple itself was tightly clenched in her right fist, pressed firmly against the hem of her dress. "That's me," Christina exclaimed in confusion. "Definitely me. There's an identical photo at home." "You see? And you say it's another person." Gregorio tapped his fingers on the table. "All the data here matches you too." "Sorry, but I absolutely don't know the deceased." "Are you sure? Let me show you his photo as well." The lawyer turned to his folder again and pulled out two glossy sheets. In one, a fairly recent photo, an old man with completely white hair and very sinewy legs was mooring some vessel. It was evident only that the man was somewhere at sea, marked by his tan and the indescribable blue in the image. But when Christina took the second photo, she almost withdrew her hand. Looking back at her was certainly the same man, only about 25 years younger, around 50 years old. The woman didn't know him, but the resemblance to herself was immediately noticeable. She had never looked like her mother and had never seen her father. She was always told that he died somewhere in the northern ice. She believed this until she was about 10, but then she understood there was no polar explorer father, just an unfortunate love and an abandoned pregnant woman. "He looks like you, doesn't he?" The lawyer squinted. "You know, I won't keep you in suspense. Senor Rafe is your father." "That's impossible. My father died over 30 years ago, and his name was Theodore." "Are you sure? Is that what your mother told you? By the way, I think if you show her this photo, she'll change her expression immediately. You see, I was Rafe's trustee. We worked together for many years, and he told me a lot. I'm not at liberty to disclose attorney-client privilege, but the person is no longer alive. And there is a letter here in which he wrote everything to you himself." "A letter?" "Yes, along with the will, there was a letter for his daughter Christina. But I still don't understand. I, of course, didn't believe all my mother's nonsense about the polar explorer, but I thought my father just abandoned us. But he had a photo of me at 4 years old. So my mother somehow gave it to him. Your father was a good man, and he did not abandon you. By the way, your mother didn't lie about the polar expedition. He did often go to the Arctic. He used to be a geologist, gas, oil, and then he disappeared for a long time. It so happened that it was at this moment that your mother found out about her pregnancy. She informed Rafe and expected him back in 2 weeks, but the weather suddenly worsened, and the expedition was trapped in the ice for several months, with no communication or contact. They were even considered dead because some locals stumbled upon traces of an abandoned camp, and everything indicated that bears had been there. They found 3 bodies, the rest were considered missing. Apparently, this information was relayed to your mother. Out of grief, the woman either moved or abandoned everything. He did not know for sure. When he finally managed to get out, no one was waiting for him at the old address. No information, absolutely nothing, as if his fiancée had vanished into thin air. Then, several years later, he received a letter at his old address. By that time, Rafe no longer lived there but had not sold the apartment. He still hoped that Josefa, your mother, would get in touch, and he was not mistaken. Inside the envelope was a photo of a little girl and a note. "I don't know if you are alive, Rafe. I waited and believed for so long, knocked on your door, but there was only silence. It seems you are no longer in this world. It's foolish to write to a dead man, but I no longer know how to tell you that you have a daughter. Her name is Christina. She is already 4 and learning to read. She is very smart, just like you, and she looks exactly like you. It seems like God is comforting me." There was nothing else. The envelope was completely clean, with no return address or even a hint of the sender. Rafe used all his connections, but Josefa had vanished without a trace. Later, he found out that Josefa had changed her surname and registered her daughter with it. Only God knows why. Maybe she just wanted to forget the past. She never told you? No. I always thought Cedillo was our family name for my grandmother. My mother said something about a big fight between her and my grandfather, and they gave up his surname, and we followed suit to support her. But I might be mixing things up. I was very young and don't remember well. I see, the lawyer nodded. But how did my father find me? He found you a long time ago, about 6 years back. He hired a private investigator, a former detective. The man quickly discovered everything. It used to be hard to get information, but now, I don't know the details, but it came down to Rafe finding you, and then something in him faltered, and he just got scared. Can you imagine, hoping for so many years, finding you, and then giving up? What was he afraid of? Think about it. By then, you were already a grown woman, married, and had never heard of him. And suddenly, out of the blue, your father shows up. So what? Christina was surprised. What difference does it make how many years have passed? He wasn't at fault for what happened. And my mother is something else. Christina, you see, we are all different, and what is simple for you can be worse than death for another. Rafe was very worried. He prepared to meet you many times, but always postponed it. He wanted to see Josefa too, even watched her from a distance. He also wanted to reach out through me, but he always stopped at the last moment. Don't judge him. Senor Gregorio, honestly, I am in shock. What did he die of? His heart, quite mundane. Although he kept himself in shape until the very end, he was passionate about yachting. He wrote his will back when he found out everything about you. His personal life never quite worked out. He was a one-woman man. There were women, of course, but nothing serious. They were attracted to his money. Was he rich? Christina asked, feeling embarrassed. By today's standards, he was quite well off. He worked in the oil and gas industry, a high-class specialist, always invited abroad. Later, he got into securities after retiring. You'll see for yourself soon. I suggest we proceed with the reading of the will. Wait, Christina interrupted. Can I refuse, if anything? Refuse the money? Are you worried that your father had debts? No, not at all. It's just that I'm scared to even know what's in there. It doesn't feel like it's mine. Honestly, it sounds a bit absurd, like I've stepped into a movie, an inheritance, a lost father, immense wealth. You are free to do as you wish. I am obligated to fulfill the deceased's last will and acquaint you with his decision. If you refuse, the money will go to charity, but I still believe you should accept it all. Rafe hoped for almost 30 years that he would one day meet his daughter, from the day he found that photo in the mailbox. And he worked only for you. Christina, believe me, I know what I'm talking about. He was not only my client, but also a close friend. I see, Christina said. All right then, read it. The lawyer summoned some people, presumably his assistants, and opened the envelope containing the will in front of everyone. Mama, are you home? Christina shouted, opening the door to her old apartment. Why didn't you lock it again? How many times do I have to tell you? Oh, darling, Josefa exclaimed, wringing her hands and wiping them on her apron. Don't scold me, I forgot. And you're just in time, I'm making a casserole. You could have at least warned me. Mama, we need to have a very serious talk, and you might want to sit down for this. What's the matter? Did something happen? Josefa sat on the edge of the couch, folding her hands on her lap and fiddling with the apron string. I just came from a lawyer. Oh, are you here to talk to me about the divorce? Don't worry, let your Matthias live as he wants. He ruined your life, and you never gave me grandchildren. I always told you to marry only for great love, and if there's none, there's no need to rush into anything. Mama, this isn't about the divorce. By the way, did you love my father? Your father? Yes, my father, the polar explorer. Her mother pursed her lips and looked intently at her daughter. Sweetie, do you think I would have struggled all these years alone if I didn't love him? Well, not completely alone, I had you, but still. Christina took out a photo of Rafe from her bag and handed it to her mother. Josefa looked at the picture, confused. Where did you get this? She asked in a trembling voice, reaching for the photo. Josefa carefully took the picture, and Christina saw tears well up in her mother's eyes. Mama, is this really my father? Darling, was all the woman could say before bursting into tears. Christina spent a long time calming her crying mother. She made her some coffee, and when Josefa had composed herself a bit, Christina told her everything she had learned from the lawyer. Mama, there's also a letter, but I haven't read it yet. I'm scared. Let's read it together. So Rafe was alive all these years and... Read it, daughter, please read it. Christina took out a white envelope with "To my daughter Christina" beautifully written on it. She opened the letter, and the page was filled with neat lines of writing. She began to read aloud. Hello, my dear daughter. When you read these lines, I will probably no longer be alive. I feel it. I understand that I don't have the strength or courage to meet you. I have tried for many years to find you, but it was all in vain. But fate was kind, and a few years ago I managed to find you. Yet something inside me stopped me from just walking up and saying, Hello, daughter, I am your father. I know I will blame myself for this hesitation until the end of my days. But life is not as simple as it seems. Once, your mother and I loved each other very much and eagerly awaited the birth of our wonderful child. But there's a saying, if you want to make God laugh, tell him about your plans. That's how it was for me. Over 30 years ago, I often traveled north for work. That expedition turned out to be fateful. We got caught in a terrible storm. Several people died, and the survivors were cut off from civilization for many months. Our group was considered missing. As I later found out, relatives were immediately told not to hope for much. Your mother was apparently overwhelmed with grief and left her home. I searched for her for a long time, but it was all in vain. Nowadays, finding someone is easy, but back then, times were different. Sweetie, I resumed my attempts when I found your photo in my mailbox. You are so beautiful. I don't understand why Josefa acted the way she did. She could have at least asked the neighbors. Of course, few people knew I had returned, but we still had mutual acquaintances. From what I gathered, you moved to another city for a long time and only returned when you got married. This was later explained to me by the private detective I hired to search for you. Daughter, the past cannot be changed now, and I feel that I will never be able to speak with you. Don't judge me harshly. I am a weak and sentimental person, though I was a tough man with strong principles, hardened by the northern winds all my life. I don't know what's happening to me. I can't even explain it to myself. I was afraid. Afraid that Josefa had stopped loving me, that she had found someone else. I remained alone. If only I had known that she was still waiting for me, I would have moved mountains to find you. But fear and doubt were to blame. Never be afraid or doubtful, sweetie, and then everything will be fine. I have lived a long life, and believe me, I know what I'm talking about. I was never afraid of anything, but with age, I gave up, my health declined, and the constant loneliness took its toll. I worked a lot and amassed a considerable fortune. If you accept even a part of what I have, I will be the happiest person. Don't see this money as an attempt to buy you off, no. All this time, I worked with only one thought, that one day I would hug you and be able to make up for your suffering. I have a weak heart, age is catching up with me. I don't know how much time I have left, but I feel it's not long. And if I still don't have the courage to speak with you, you will receive this letter after my death. I love you, sweetie, with all my ailing heart, and I never forgot your mother. You were and are the two most precious treasures in my life. I hope what remains after me will bring you happiness. Rafe. Both women were silent. In the looming silence, the ticking of the wall clock was distinctly audible. And to think, I believed it was all a lie. Christina broke the silence, about the polar explorers, about dying in the ice. No, sweetie, it's all true, her mother whispered. Oh God, what a fool I was to believe that colonel. What colonel? Christina asked, alarmed. Theodore, you don't remember him. We separated before you turned one. He came to tell me that Rafe had died. He talked about the found bodies and how there was no hope. At first, he just came by, bringing some groceries, and then he started courting me. I was pregnant with you at the time and gave in. But don't get the wrong idea, nothing happened between us. When I was 8 months pregnant, he suggested we move, and when you were born, he officially recognized you as his. But I couldn't live with him. Before you turned one, I went back to my mother. Now I understand that Rafe was already looking for us, but couldn't find us and gave up. He didn't know my mother, especially since she lived in another city. It was all very complicated. It seems unimaginable now, not having any relatives' details or anything. But back then, we didn't even get married, we just lived together. Mom was against it, so I didn't introduce them, and he didn't have parents, he was an orphan. It seems like I could have just asked around. But when I left with Theodore, I didn't tell anyone, I just wanted to forget everything and start anew. Now I realize that if I had been his official wife, everything would have come out sooner. But there's more. Theodore later brought me an official document, stating in black and white that Rafe Sierra was officially declared dead. Do you think he lied? Christina frowned. I didn't think so at the time. Now I understand he could have done that. Rafe must have resurfaced by then. Theodore couldn't have not known he was alive. I trusted him completely. After all, he was an official, an officer. I couldn't run around the authorities with a baby, so he took care of everything. It turns out that's how it was. Theodore pursued me by all means, offering to marry me and then travel with him as his lawful wife, but I was either scared or had an intuition that Rafe was alive, I can't explain. One day we had a big fight. I remember he grabbed you from the crib, and I went mad, hitting him with my fists and screaming. The next morning, I packed our things when he left for duty and went to my mother. I haven't seen him since. And why did you put my photo in my father's mailbox? When those photos were taken, and I looked at them, I felt an overwhelming longing. You reminded me so much of Rafe in that photo, the same mischievous look, like you were planning something, and those eyes. I don't remember what came over me, but I put the photo in an envelope and came here secretly from my mother. I told her I had to inquire about a job, that an interesting position had opened up. I got on the train and left. I walked around Rafe's house for a long time. I should have asked the neighbors. Oh, I should have. But what's done is done. I went into the building, rang the doorbell, and naturally, no one answered. So, I slipped the envelope into the mailbox, knowing no one else would see it. I thought I was doing the right thing. As you can see, someone did see your envelope. Mama, why didn't you ask any of the neighbors? The lawyer said that father sometimes came to check the apartment, never sold it, always hoping you would come. I did come, but I acted like a fool. What can we do now? There's nothing we can do now, Mama. Father has died, but I'm glad to know he didn't forget us. All these years, I lived believing you lied to me, for my own good, of course, but still. I thought Father just abandoned you when you were pregnant, and you and Grandma made up that story about the expedition to avoid unnecessary questions. Oh, my sweet girl, how could I lie to you? I didn't tell you much about your father because it was hard for me to cope with it all myself. Why didn't he come to me? I would have accepted him, despite being ashamed in front of you. I loved him all my life. All your life. Is it possible to love someone all your life? Christina pondered. Or does Mom say that because she avoided the harsh reality of domestic problems? Did she romanticize Father's image and believe in love? Yes, probably so. Daughter, Josefa interrupted Christina's thoughts. Did he leave you something, then? I'm not asking out of greed, just curious. He mentioned it in the letter. And you went to the lawyer to hear the will, right? It would be wonderful if he left you his old apartment. I would love to visit it once more. There was such a lovely balcony. We used to stand there and kiss all the time, and the neighbor, Adelita, would scold us, calling us shameless. So many memories in that place. But he probably sold it, so I don't even dream of going back. No, Mom, Christina smiled, he didn't sell it. You'll have the chance to relive your memories, but I'm still unsure whether to accept the inheritance or not. Of course you should. And don't think I'm so worried about the money, it's just that the apartment would be useful to you now. I understand Matthias is planning to leave you with nothing. You mentioned he's already taken control of everything with his mistress. At least you'd have a place to live. You can always stay with me, this is your home too. But you need to build your life further, and it's not convenient to do so with your mother right beside you. That's true, Mom, but it's not just the apartment. Not just the apartment? Josefa was surprised. Yes, Christina nodded. Father left everything he had, and it's a lot, Mom, too much. Look, here it is. She handed her mother the will. Josefa read it carefully, her eyebrows rising higher with each second. So, it turns out, she finally said, Rafe was wealthy? What about these yachts? The lawyer said Father was passionate about sailing. He had 2 boats in Valencia and 1 in the Netherlands. He even went on a round-the-world trip. Wow, Josefa shook her head. Who would have thought? Christina, it's a fortune. Are you sure it's all true? Yes, I didn't believe it myself, but Senor Gregorio showed me all the documents. There's no mistake. If I accept the inheritance, all of this will be mine. I just don't know what to do with such wealth. And if you don't accept it? You could just take part of it, the apartment, for example, and let the rest go to charity. Such a large sum of money. I have to either accept everything or reject everything. That's the condition Father set. I don't know why he did it that way. Rafe was always a maximalist, it's just like him. Daughter, where is he buried? I'd like to visit his grave. Senor Gregorio said the body was cremated, and the urn with the ashes was placed in a columbarium at the local cemetery. We'll definitely visit, but I need some time to process all this first. Christina and her mother talked for a long time. Josefa reminisced about the past, occasionally crying and hugging her daughter. That evening, Christina decided to stay with her mother instead of returning to the empty apartment where her marriage had ended. Christina moved into her father's old apartment. Everything there seemed so unfamiliar and strange to her: antique furniture, stuffed northern animals, collections of minerals, and old photographs. In one photo, she saw her smiling mother in Rafe's arms. She spent a long time looking at it, not wanting to change anything there. Josefa visited several times and immersed herself in memories, often standing on the balcony. Christina even set up a resting spot for her there, with a small table and a wicker chair. The woman moved all her belongings there. She didn't tell Matthias anything about the apartment, the inheritance, or that her father had been found. He didn't need to know. Now she was just waiting for the day of the court hearing. The divorce was scheduled for the following week. Before that, Christina wanted to visit Valencia and admire one of her father's yachts. She didn't know anything about sailing and planned to sell the boats. However, it turned out that their maintenance had been paid for several years in advance. In any case, there was enough money, but she didn't want them to sit idle. Still, before selling, she wanted to see the vessel in person, touch the ropes her father had tied knots on, and feel the helm. Valencia greeted her with warm August air, humid and somewhat muddy. Christina had been here a long time ago, back in her school years, but other than the Cathedral of St. Mary, she didn't remember much. Now everything seemed different. She didn't have to rent a place. Her father had an apartment here, which now belonged to Christina. She entered the dark hallway and climbed the wide steps to the second floor. Behind the large double doors was a huge apartment with high ceilings adorned with old stucco. Christina was amazed at how well her father had preserved everything. It was evident that the massive furniture was not a replica but carefully restored antiques. On the wall hung a French clock with chimes, and from the ceiling of the living room hung a giant crystal chandelier. What a place, Christina whistled, walking around her new possessions. Why did father need all this? Investment? Although if you live in Valencia, it has to be in a house like this. I can't argue with that. After resting a bit, Christina went to the port, where a handsome man named Tomas was waiting for her. They had arranged in advance that he would show her the yacht and coordinate the next steps. Tomas turned out to be a man in his early 30s, very tall and exceptionally athletic. His arms were so strong and sinewy that Christina shivered when she saw them. But his smile was kind and open, complemented by wide, childlike gray eyes framed by black lashes. What lashes, Christina thought as she responded to Tomas's firm handshake. Any woman would die of envy, and he's a handsome man himself, clearly hardened by sea air and physical exercise. Tomas, the man introduced himself. I don't like formalities, so I'd appreciate it if we could switch to informal communication right away. All right, the woman laughed. You can call me Christina or just Chris, whichever you prefer. I like Chris, it sounds very casual and sincere. Christina sounds too serious and formal. No offense. None taken, Christina laughed. I also prefer being called Chris. Great. Shall we get acquainted with the yachts? Absolutely, Captain, Christina replied cheerfully. Tomas led Christina to the pier and walked her through a long line of docked yachts. It was the first time she had seen a vessel so close. On pictures, they seemed so small, but here, they looked like real giants. She shared her observation with Tomas. That's nothing, he chuckled, you should see the ocean yachts. They would really blow your mind, they're like floating apartment buildings. They seem huge from the outside, but they feel even bigger from the deck. You'll see for yourself soon enough. Here we are. Tomas stopped near two yachts. The hull of one was marked with blue stripes, and the other with burgundy. Meet the beauties, Chris. The one with the blue stripe is your namesake, Christina, and her neighbor is Josefa. Really? The woman was surprised. I see my father was a romantic, naming his boats after me and my mom. He never said a word about it. I asked him more than once why he gave such names to his beauties. Rafe always said they just sounded beautiful. By the way, I didn't even know he had a wife and daughter. He always came alone and never spoke about his family. Do you live in another city? I won't hide it, Tomas, Christina sighed. I only found out I had a father 2 months ago. Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet him. The lawyer called me for the reading of the will. It was a real shock for my mom and me. Now all his property belongs to me. I know my father was very attached to his yachts, but I have no connection to this world and would like to sell them eventually so they don't rust in the port. I'm sure there are people who would be interested. Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't mind acquiring one myself. Many people coveted Rafe's boats. They were lucky for him. Not only did he personally oversee every step of their construction at the shipyard, but he also won several regattas with them. And in the Netherlands, he has a real ship named Polar Bear. He even went on a round-the-world trip on it, not alone, of course. I feel so sad that I couldn't get to know my father personally. He seems to have been an outstanding man, if the stories about him are to be believed. That's putting it mildly. Rafe was a man with a capital M and did a lot for those in need. He didn't stash money under the mattress like a greedy old man. He always said that everyone is rewarded for their deeds and strive to help people. In fact, he introduced me to sailing. I was just a kid back then, only 15. He invited me, you could say, to be a cabin boy on his crew. Over 20 years, I worked my way up to captain, not of a pirate ship, of course, or a military one, but still. So, you're a real captain? Christina was surprised. Absolutely, Tomas winked. If you like, I can show you. How about a little trip? We could sail to Ibiza and back. What do you think? I'd love to. Christina's eyes widened. I've only been on a yacht once, in Phuket, but it was more like a speedboat than a yacht, and without sails. We'll sail on Josefa. It's smaller, so we don't need to gather a full crew. Aye, aye, Captain, Christina saluted playfully. Tomas helped her aboard and then got busy preparing for the sail. The trip was fantastic, the wind was strong enough, and the vessel moved swiftly over the gentle waves. Christina enjoyed the breeze and the sun's reflections off the water. Tomas stood by the helm, embodying the perfect captain from a romance novel. Christina couldn't help but daydream. She imagined herself next to him, tenderly hugging his strong torso and holding onto a lace hat. The yacht circled the island and headed back to port. Stepping onto land, Christina felt a pleasant, light dizziness. She thoroughly enjoyed the short trip. Now, do you understand why your father was so passionate about this sport? Tomas smiled. Absolutely, Christina admired. One trip was enough for me to want more. So, maybe you won't sell the yachts? You can afford not to work and do whatever you want now. I think Rafe would be happy to know that his daughter followed in his footsteps. Well, Christina drawled, there's a difference between entertainment and a real passion. I haven't decided what I want to do yet. Honestly, I wouldn't want to lead an idle life. My husband earned well, but that never motivated me to quit working. So, you're married, Tomas said, a bit disappointed. I thought a girl as awesome as you couldn't be single. I'm getting a divorce, Christina replied with a sigh. My marriage is over, and I'm starting a new chapter. Tomas's face brightened. Well, in that case, maybe we can go sailing again sometime. I'd love to show you more of what your father loved so much. I'd like that, Christina smiled. Thank you for today, Tomas. It was truly wonderful. Thanks for calling me a girl, Christina laughed, but I'm already a grown woman. And as for my husband, actually, I'm getting a divorce next week. Really? Tomas was surprised. How come? Is your husband crazy? Letting go of a woman like you? Maybe he is crazy, Christina laughed loudly. He's been having an affair for a long time. Can you imagine, he confessed on our anniversary. What a jerk, Tomas shook his head. I don't understand some men, they have a beautiful, smart, interesting wife. What more do they need? Drive him mad or something? You don't seem like a nag or a shrew. He found someone younger. It's the usual story, a man nearing 50, bored with his wife, spots a 20-year-old girl on the horizon, and off he goes like a dog chasing a bone. Someone younger? How old are you? I wouldn't have guessed more than 27. It's impolite to ask a woman her age, but... I'll be 33 soon, Christina interrupted him. And I'm not ashamed of my age. What's there to be ashamed of? You certainly have no reason to be ashamed. You look great, and you're younger than me. I guess that makes me an old man. An old man? Tomas, are you kidding? Christina looked at him reproachfully. I never even considered Matthias an old man, and he's 15 years older than me. Got it. All right, I won't bother you with such talk anymore. It must be unpleasant. It's fine. I've let it go. At least my husband confessed honestly, though he didn't handle it in the best way. We didn't have any jointly acquired property. He put everything in the company's name to pay fewer taxes. And now I've found out that he gave our house to his lover. Can you imagine? The one we built together, and he's essentially throwing me out. But now I don't care at all. My father left me so much that I can live in different places every month if I want. Does your husband know about the inheritance? No way, he's greedy for money. He'd come up with some trick. I'm afraid he might try to claim half of it. Why would he? Inheritance isn't considered joint property, you can be sure of that. Really? I was so worried. Why didn't you ask the lawyer? I didn't even think of it. That's women for you, worrying over nothing, but checking the facts? Not their thing. All right, I won't criticize you. How about we grab a bite? There's a great pizzeria nearby with amazing paninis. My treat. I wouldn't say no, Christina smiled, but let me treat you. Let's say, to celebrate my inheritance and remember my father. Well, if you insist. Though it's not very gentlemanly of me. That's all right. I don't believe a man needs to be overly gallant. As they drove to the pizzeria, Christina asked, Tomas, how about I sell you one of the yachts? Seriously, I don't need them, and this way, they'll be in good hands. Are you kidding? I can't afford that. I have my own boat, much smaller, and it already costs a fortune to maintain. I'm just an ordinary IT guy. It took me 10 years to save up for my boat. Rafe's yachts are a dream for people like me, but I can find a buyer for you. Are they really that expensive? Christina looked at Tomas. Christina, sailing is either for the rich or the obsessed. I fall into the latter category. I love living the dream. What if I rent them to you? Would that work? Sell your boat and choose between Josefa and Christina. Sail as much as you want. I even have another one in the Netherlands, but I don't know how or when to go there. Rent them, you say? Tomas frowned. That suits me better, as long as you don't charge an arm and a leg. Me? I have no idea how much they cost. You decide how much you can afford. You could just take care of it. What do I need the money for? That's not a problem anymore. I know you wouldn't take anything for free, but I think your care for the yacht would be the best payment. If you're not joking, I'm all for it, Tomas smiled. And here we are. Christina arrived at the courthouse in an elegant sports car she found in her father's country house garage. There were several cars there, one she had never even dreamed of. And she loved cars, even the one she saved up for was chosen very carefully, considering everything. Powerful cars had always been an unattainable luxury, though Matthias drove a prestigious German business-class sedan and rarely allowed Christina to drive it. When he did, she loved the roar of the engine and the feeling that all that luxury and power was entirely in her hands. Now it seemed her dream had come true. Christina didn't need all those cars. She'd be content to drive each of them once and then choose the best one. Now, the woman silently closed the door of her bright yellow Italian car and proudly walked towards the entrance. She went up to the second floor where the courtroom was located and saw Matthias with Ernest standing by the window, animatedly discussing something. Hello, Christina said cheerfully with a smile, long time no see. You look happy, Matthias said awkwardly. Eager to put an end to this? Me? Judging by Ernest's face, it seems she's the one most eager. Ernest grimaced in a sarcastic smirk. And where's your little dog? Christina squinted. Not allowed here, or don't you want her to see this show? Christina, are you drunk? Matthias was outraged. Yeah, drunk on life. I just find it funny how serious you both look. You should be happy, everyone is getting what they want today. And what kind of car is that? Her husband asked timidly. We saw you pull up in that yellow car. Oh, that, Christina smiled, that's mine now, but don't think you'll get half of it. Everyone gets what they deserve, Matthias. You took everything from me, or rather, didn't want to share. Did you think I'd spend my old age scraping by? Well, guess what? Life sometimes has surprises. Please, everyone proceed to the courtroom, the clerk's voice interrupted Christina before she could finish. Well, let's go, she waved her hand. 40 minutes later, it was all over. Christina dashed out of the courtroom, not wanting any more contact with her ex-husband and his new partner, but Matthias caught up with her. Still, tell me, where did you get that car? I didn't like how calm you were when the judge said you wouldn't get anything after the divorce. Matthias, what does it matter to you now? We're strangers from now on. Oh, just tell him, Ernest interjected as she approached them. I'm curious too. The car is top-notch. Want a ride? Sorry, I can't, it only has 2 seats. I got it as part of an inheritance, along with many other similar cars, yachts, houses, and a substantial bank account. Yeah, right, Matthias laughed. From whom? Did a rich uncle in America die? Don't believe me? I don't care. We have nothing in common anymore, and I won't be giving you any details. By the way, Ernest, Christina looked intently at her rival. You two are together out of great love, right? So this shouldn't matter. What are you talking about? Matthias asked nervously. About your debts. Your chosen one, Ernest, isn't as wealthy as he appears. All of it, the car, the house, the suit, the watch, just a facade, pitiful remnants. Ask how much his company owes to creditors. And Matthias, when you dig up information about my inheritance, and you will, I know, don't come crying to me and begging for money. From this moment, forget I exist and don't try to contact me. Understand? Everyone makes their own choices and deals with the consequences. Christina turned sharply on her heels and ran down the stairs. Christina sped down the highway in her bright yellow car. Her heart was pounding, but it wasn't due to the euphoria she felt. She experienced an indescribable sense of freedom. A freedom she had never thought about or dreamed of. Only now did she realize that she and Matthias had been disconnected for many years. Their marriage had turned into a dull habit, held together by a stamp in their passports. Love. To hell with love, she thought. You need to love yourself first and foremost because you are the most valuable thing in your life. Why waste your energy on other people? Sure, there are parents and children, but that's a different kind of love, unconditional. There's love for friends, nature, good food, that's all different. Love is the universe, wholeness, harmony, and until you have that within yourself, the world will keep throwing one unpleasant surprise after another. And there's no point dreaming of a perfect prince who showers you with flowers at first, only for you to end up buried under a pile of their dirty socks and constant reproaches. So, what now? Be alone? Buddhists believe that a complete person can thrive in solitude, but it's boring to live that way. Although, I have plenty of money now, I can do whatever I want, travel the world. Matthias and I only went to standard resorts. I'll go to Africa, so many countries there with different cultures, and I've always dreamed of visiting Asia. Yes, and I must see my father's ship in the Netherlands. Maybe Tomas is right, I should try sailing. The sea can help distract from all these trivial thoughts. What's holding me here? Mom? No, she'd be happy if I didn't sit at home. And I can always invite her along, though she probably wouldn't go, she's such a homebody. What else? Work? Not a strong argument. What's there for me at that design bureau, just wasting time? I'm fed up. And the vacation fell apart with this divorce. It's settled, I'm quitting. How long is the notice period? 2 weeks? I'll go back to the office and submit my resignation immediately. That's exactly what Christina did. She went to the bureau the next day and went straight to her boss. Senora Beatriza, she confidently entered the office. Please sign this. What is this? The boss asked, peering over her glasses as she took the resignation letter from Christina. I'm quitting. What do you mean, quitting, Christina? What happened? Senora Beatriza looked at her in confusion. Nothing happened. I just realized that I need this. The divorce and everything. Well, people get divorced often, but why quit immediately? How will you support yourself? Your ex-husband won't be providing for you. I have enough to live on, Christina smiled. My father left me a large inheritance. I could never work again if I wanted. I just need to find myself again. I've been living in some kind of illusion for 12 years, losing my own identity. Is that so? Well, I won't try to dissuade you, but I must say we hate to lose a specialist like you. Think it over. By law, you need to work another 2 weeks. Maybe you'll change your mind. I'll work the 2 weeks, but I won't change my mind. I've made my decision, Christina said confidently. All right, Christina, but I'm very sorry. You've really shocked me. I'll sign it, but I hope you reconsider. Christina didn't change her mind. She worked the remaining 2 weeks, finishing all her ongoing projects. She didn't want to leave any loose ends. The time flew by, and her last shift was over. She greeted the new morning feeling completely free from her past. In September, Christina decided to go back to Valencia. She didn't tell Tomas in advance. She wanted to surprise him. She arrived at the port early in the morning straight from the airport. It was quite chilly, and she wrapped herself tightly in her cashmere coat. She walked to her father's yachts. There was almost no one at the pier. She dialed Tomas's number, but he didn't answer. What an idiot. Why did I come here? Christina thought. Well, I'll wait for him on the boat. Maybe he'll show up. Christina boarded the Josefa and went down to the cabin. The flight had taken its toll. She lay down on the bunk and fell asleep almost immediately. She woke up to someone shaking her shoulder. She grumbled, trying to open her eyes. Standing before her was a smiling Tomas. I thought some tramp had broken in and was making themselves at home, Tomas laughed. Chris, how did you get here? I called you, but you didn't answer. Then I fell asleep. I didn't mean that. What brings you to Valencia? Tomas, I got divorced and quit my job, and now I want to start a new life, Christina declared straightforwardly as she got up from the bunk. Just like that, Tomas was surprised. So, what have you decided? I thought maybe you're right, and I should learn to sail a yacht. Where do I start? Well, darling, Tomas laughed, it's not that simple. You need to learn. How long will it take? It depends on your luck. Generally, to acquire basic skills at a sailing school, it takes about a year. There's theory, navigation, and piloting to learn. Automation makes a lot of things easier, but you need to know the basics. After that, you can decide for yourself, but I can teach you practical skills on the side. I'm in, Christina's eyes sparkled. Can we start right now? You're eager, Tomas winked at her. No, we can't go out to sea today, the weather isn't great. But I can show you how everything works here, and then we can go to the sailing school to sign you up for classes. Yay! Christina clapped her hands. Over the next few hours, Tomas passionately explained everything on the yacht and how it was used. He showed her how to tie nautical knots, explained the principle of steering and using sails, and demonstrated how the instruments worked. Christina was thrilled. Well, Christina is a bit more complex. It's a bigger yacht, and you'd need a crew of 3 to 4 people to sail her. I like Josefa, Christina said, looking into the distance. I can sail her alone, right? Does it matter that I'm a woman? It doesn't matter, Tomas reassured her. We have a girl in our club who's only 15, and she's already won a round-the-world regatta on her 30-meter yacht. No way. Christina's eyes widened. There are many women sailors. It only seems tough and complicated at first glance. If you have willpower, a love for the sea, and a desire to live, then welcome aboard. I do want to live. Christina shouted. Why are you shouting? I see you do. Shall we go then? I need to be somewhere right now. I wasn't planning on staying at the port. I came here by chance. Yes, let's go. Tomas helped her into his car, and they drove for a while. When they reached the center of town, he drove into one of the courtyards. Chris, listen, I didn't mention this earlier, but you can wait in the car if you prefer, or you can come up with me. I promised to visit my daughter today. Daughter? Christina exclaimed in surprise. Don't get the wrong idea, she's almost grown up. She'll be 17 soon and is in high school. 17? Yes, her mother and I got married right after school. We thought it was true love, forever, and all that. Amadia got pregnant almost immediately and gave birth at 18. That's when we realized that our little world wasn't as rosy as we thought. I was in college then, working night shifts as a guard or doing freelance computer jobs. Money was tight. Amadia stayed home with Serena and didn't work or pursue further education after high school. So, I did what I could. Our parents helped, of course. Amadia's grandmother lived here and took us in. After she passed away, the apartment went to Amadia. They live here together now, and our marriage fell apart after 3 years. Amadia found someone else. We parted without fights or scandals. I understood that she wanted a better life, which I couldn't provide at the time. My only condition was that she wouldn't prevent me from seeing Serena. Amadia lived with that man for a while, but they split up. She's still trying to sort out her personal life. I helped them out, of course. My daughter doesn't lack anything. As for Amadia, she's still a part of my life. I understand she might not be in the right, but she's the mother of my child. And do you get along well with Serena? How does she feel about all this? Oh, Serena is amazing. I never really left her life. She's a smart girl. When she was 5, she told me, Dad, why did you marry Mom so early? You should have tested your relationship over time. Can you imagine? She said it just like that. I was surprised, of course, wondering how such a conclusion came from a 5-year-old, especially since her mother didn't have an answer herself. But we get along well. She keeps me updated on her life, and I do the same. We have a very trusting relationship. She doesn't have the same rapport with her mother, but doesn't want to live with me either. Understandable, since I live in a one-room apartment, and she's a teenage girl. She visits, but I go to see her more often. Will you come up with me? I'd like to introduce you. Are you sure it's okay? Christina felt a bit embarrassed. Why not? Amadia isn't home. She went off somewhere with another suitor. Serena is home alone. All right, although I feel a bit shy. Shy of whom? Serena? Don't be. You'll see, it'll be fine. Christina and Tomas went up to the 3rd floor of a huge old building. Even the staircase deserved to be called a work of art. Wow, Christina admired, looking at the statues in the niches. Remnants of former glory. They recently did some renovations here. It had been run down for years. They decided to restore the cultural heritage, even though half of the apartments here are still communal. Amadia's grandmother somehow managed to get a 3-room apartment. They say she even intentionally got a guy drunk to get him to sign it over to her, and then he died. Seriously? Christina grimaced. Who knows? Should we believe the gossip? Here we are. Tomas rang the doorbell, and a cheerful chime was followed by the sound of someone's brisk footsteps, like a happy little elephant slapping its wet feet on the parquet. The door swung open. Dad, squealed a tiny girl with blue hair and a freckled face. Oh, you're not alone? This is Chris, right? I recognized her right away. Christina was taken aback, not expecting such a reaction from the girl. Hi, Chris. I'm Serena, very pleased to meet you. Dad's told me so much about you. Hi, Serena, Christina replied, feeling a bit shy, and then looked at Tomas. I wonder what he could have told you. Everything. Dad is like an open book. Come in, or the neighbor will start complaining again about me yelling across the landing. Has your mom returned yet? Tomas asked his daughter. No, not yet. She'll be partying with her Abdullah for at least another week. I tell her, Mom, calm down, stop searching for happiness. Focus on your nail business. But no, she's stubborn and goes crazy over these men. And what do? Use her and leave. They sing her songs, take her to the sea. That Archon took her to Dubai, did his business, and then she had to buy her own return ticket. How can she be so foolish? Serena, stop talking about your mother like that, Tomas requested, though not very strictly. Christina realized that Tomas fully agreed with his daughter's opinion and was only trying to stop her out of politeness in front of a guest. Why should I stop? Am I not telling the truth? It doesn't stop me from loving her, I just want her to be happy, not like this. After each Abdullah, she cries for a month, work halts, and I have to take care of her clients. And I have school, exams to prepare for, not to do nails. But we need the money. Serena, how many times have I told you? Tomas interrupted the endless stream of speech. If you need money, ask. Don't neglect your studies. Serena shrugged, clearly accustomed to these conversations, and changed the subject. So, Chris, what brings you to Valencia? Staying long? Dad, how can I take your money? I know you. Chris, don't think my dad is some rich guy. If you're one of those gold diggers, though I doubt it because you don't seem that type, but just in case, drop it, Dad doesn't have a penny. And if he's trying to impress you with a yacht, that boat's worth is peanuts. I'm not after any money, Christina laughed, still getting used to the manner of this big-eyed girl. I've got plenty of my own. Really? The girl's eyes widened. Really? Looks like your dad hasn't told you everything? Christina shot a sly glance at the blushing Tomas. I think I'll go make us something to drink, Tomas suggested meekly and slipped out of the room, leaving Christina with his daughter. He always does that, ducks out when he blushes, doesn't want anyone to see his embarrassment. But I just say things as they are, Serena proclaimed proudly. So, tell me. I inherited a fortune. Now I'm rich. A big inheritance? Too big. Now I don't know what to do with all of it. And no kids? No. No husband, no kids. I got divorced recently. Now I'm trying to start a new life. I want to learn to sail a yacht. Oh, you've come to the right person. Dad will teach you quickly. He even taught me, but I'm not that interested. I want to be a designer. You draw? Yes, but I'm more interested in interiors. I'm passionate about them. To become a good specialist, you need to study abroad, which isn't possible right now. I'll try to get into architecture here, and maybe I'll get lucky and get an internship abroad through the university. That's commendable. Chris, forgive me for being so straightforward. I don't know how to be any other way, but I'll tell you one thing, I can see right through Dad, and I can tell he likes you. But your wealth is a serious problem. Why is that? Well, Dad is a proud man, used to achieving everything on his own. He's very kind and trusting, but money can ruin people. He's afraid of it. Afraid of people? Money. I don't know what kind of mental block he has, but he might treat you well now and then start thinking that you two are from different social backgrounds and withdraw into himself. It happens all the time at the yacht club. Only Rafe was a cool guy, tons of money, always brought me little treats, and never got conceited. He and Dad were on the same wavelength. By the way, You look a lot like him, especially your eyes. Rafe? Christina was surprised. Rafe Sierra? Yeah, that's him. It's so sad about him, the heart attack. He was old, but I really loved him. That's my father, Christina sighed. No way? Serena's eyes widened. So, you inherited his entire estate. Wow. Listen, how do you feel about my dad? Because he might have built up some fantasies, and it could be different in reality. I don't want him to get disappointed. He's had bad luck in his personal life, even though he's such a great guy. I don't even know, Christina pondered. I like him a lot as a person, but we've just met. I hadn't even thought that he might have feelings for me. He definitely does. I haven't seen his eyes light up like this in a long time. Really? Christina felt herself blushing. The girl's words touched something deep inside her. Think it over carefully. You're well off now, you can do anything. But don't play with my dad. He's very sensitive, even if he seems tough. If you don't have feelings for him, let him know right away so he doesn't build castles in the air. All right, Christina nodded. I'll think about it. I'll tell you a secret, Dad hasn't been with anyone for 4 years. I don't know how he manages, but he gets by. He's not the type to just have a one-night stand and then leave. He's a romantic, believes in true love, thinks there's only one and it's for life, even though he thought the same about Mom. But their love boat crashed against the rocks of reality, and they were very young when they got married. Imagine if I got married now. How long would it last? A year? I want to experience life, not be locked in 4 walls with a husband and diapers. Maybe I'll think about it when I'm 30. You have to take such steps consciously, even if the love is strong. Wow, usually girls your age dream about princes. They dream about money. Almost all my classmates are obsessed with it, convinced that a man should provide for them, take care of them. What are they, plants, animals, or sickly creatures that need someone to care for them? It's a complete misunderstanding. In reality, they just want to do nothing and pout their lips. They should improve their brains instead. Very few actually do. The guys aren't much better, although there are a few more sensible ones among them. The cult of money is very strong, I agree, Christina nodded. I'm glad you hold that opinion. Where does a young girl get so much wisdom? Many people never understand these things, even as they grow old. I read a lot, and I'm interested in everything, plus I watch how methodically my mother ruins her life. I don't want to ride around with various Abdullahs in the Emirates. Until I become self-sufficient, I can't afford to be with a loved one, he has to live with me. Why burden him with my stupidity or inexperience? I'll look for a husband who's interesting to be with, not just to have kids. And if I don't find one, well, I'll be fine alone. Girls, come drink coffee, Tomas appeared in the doorway. Yes, Dad, we're coming, Serena responded. And Chris, think it over well and know that my father's feelings for you are genuine, not about the money. Christina lay on the wide bed in her apartment in Valencia. Light from a street lamp filtered through the curtain, casting strange shadows on the walls, and she could hear the shouts of some drunken people from the courtyard. Could everything Serena said be true, she wondered, struggling with insomnia. I thought Tomas flirted with everyone, that it was just his manner. I never suspected he might have feelings for me. We've only seen each other a couple of times. Can it really be? But my heart does race when I look at him or catch his gaze. I never felt this, not even when I fell in love with Matthias. Is this just hormones, or is this what real love looks like? It felt like a shock when I first saw him. I wasn't ready then, but now I'm really curious. Do I have feelings for him, or am I just influenced by my conversation with Serena? He doesn't need my money, he supports his daughter from his first marriage, and Tomas is a very interesting man with incredible energy. I like his simplicity. If it's not an act, he's a gem. But I believe Serena and my intuition. It's not an act. There are genuine people, even though it seems like everyone's a greedy hypocrite. Maybe I should try to get to know him better. I won't impose, but I can experiment a bit. He's going to teach me how to sail until the end of the sailing season. Right? So, we'll get to know each other better and see what happens. Christina didn't notice when she fell asleep. In the morning, it was pouring rain. Tomas said there was no point in going to the port and invited Christina to his place. She agreed, and they planned to meet in the evening. Christina felt very nervous. She wanted to make a good impression on Tomas, so she went shopping for a beautiful dress. But everything she saw was either too fancy or not suitable for a casual evening. She settled on a simple bright green knit dress. She loved her reflection in the fitting room mirror. By evening, she arrived at Tomas's house by taxi. She had visited a salon and had her hair and makeup done. Tomas greeted her with a broad smile. "Wow, a touch of summer in the harsh autumn," Tomas said admiringly and kissed her on the cheek. "I made us dinner. I hope you like steaks." "It smells wonderful," Christina smiled. "Tomas, Before she could finish, Tomas pulled her into a tight embrace and kissed her. The world around her spun. Christina realized that from this moment, she was finally starting to truly live.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.